everybody, it's Christine, and I'm back with some simple mixed media techniques for those of us who like to incorporate it but maybe aren't mixed media artists exclusively. So today I'm going to show you the packaging technique, and I'm going to show you it with a whole bunch of different mediums. Starting off, I'm using Distress Oxides, and all I did is I just smushed my ink pad onto my packaging and then added a little water, and then I put it right onto my packaging and onto my paper and just rub right over the top of it. And you can see it creates a beautiful background that looks like color washed. It's just a fun look. Now you can see the Distress Oxides give a really bold, vibrant color. They are not subtle, which is fine. I think I would tend towards this more than some of the others you'll see me do later in my style of scrapbooking, because I like that less subtle, bright, colorful punch. So this is what that looks like when you use the Distress Oxides. Now let's go on to a different medium. Let's try Heidi Swapp's Color Shine Mists, because I know these are one of the more popular mists out there. I thought I would do this one specifically. And these tend to be more subtle, but interesting enough, they're one of the more bright, vibrant ones in this technique. So here I'm spraying a similar color, and I tried to stick with this turquoisey blue and bright yellow throughout so that you could really get a good comparison. But you can see that's a little more subtle, a little more translucent than the Distress Oxides. And then we're going to go on to Gelatos. Now, first we're going to try the Gelatos wet. So I just scribbled all over the paper and then add a little bit of water to it. And I am just rubbing that right on. And you can see that one is significantly more translucent, more subtle, looks much more like watercolor, just a very soft look. And that is definitely true for the Gelatos, which kind of surprised me a little bit the first time I did it. I expected it to be a little more bold. Now the next one I'm going to do is Gelatos, but I'm going to do them dry. So I'm just going to scribble onto the packaging and not add water. And I wanted you to see how this can add a extremely subtle look. If you're just looking for a little tiny punch of color in a spot, this will achieve that look without really overtaking the whole project. This is, you know, something that you could employ, say for sky behind clouds, or if you just need a little tiny bit. But you could see it was extremely subtle there. Now, how about brush markers? A lot of us have brush markers because we enjoy doing the brush lettering. So let's try these in a couple different ways. Now, first of all, I'm going to try it just straight without adding any additional water. And you can see that creates, again, another pretty subtle look, although different from what we had with the dry Gelatos. Kind of it's more splattery looking than like a big flat mist or whatever. I'm not describing it very well there, but now watch what happens though when I add water to the brush markers. This creates a much bolder look. And again, this is probably the look I would gravitate more towards. But depending what you're going for, you might want to play with it first and see which one of these is going to work the best to achieve the look that I have in mind. Now, brush markers, these ones I'm using are from SRM Stickers. They're the La Plume 2 brush markers. And so they have the brush on one side and they have the fine tip on the other, allowing you some options there. Now you can see they're much brighter, much bolder than some of the last couple techniques that we've done with those mediums. Now let's move on to our last medium, which is watercolor, but we're going to use multiple products for this. So the first one I'm going to use is just traditional watercolor pencils. And those ones, I add the water first and then I color onto the packaging and then put it on. And it creates about the look you'd expect from watercolor pencils. Not real bright, not real vibrant, very subtle, but not hidden either. Now, using the watercolor twist pencils, which you saw me do a technique earlier last week with these ones turned out way more subtle, way subtle, besides the Gelatos dry, the most subtle of all. And perhaps I could have gotten a little more color on there if I wanted to up the blue a little bit more. But you can see, this is barely showing on the blue especially. Now, finally, I'm going to use traditional watercolors. And these achieve a little bit of a different look. I am taking the water brush and then I am putting it onto the packaging and then putting it on. But you're going to see it kind of looks clumpy. once I put it off. And so I'm going to just take my water brush and go back and create more of that blended together look that I'm going for on these. I'm also going to do the same thing with the yellow. It just got kind of a clumpy look, which I'm not exactly sure why, but that's what it did. And so that's easily fixed with the water brush, as is a lot of these. If you just pull out your water brush, you can really change the look of everything. Now, if you're looking at these and going, Christine, that's going to just go right through my cardstock. Well, you can gesso it first. You can also use mixed media cardstock, which is what I'm doing in this case, and that helps absorb some of the water and keep the paper from warping too much. Now, here's what they look like side by side. So there's your Distress Oxides on the right side versus your Color Shine Mist on the left side. And then on this one, we've got the Gelatos Wet, and then we've got the Gelatos Dry. Two very different looks and very different from the first two. Then we have the brush markers Dry and then the brush markers Wet. Again, two very different looks from each other. And then on this page, we finish up with the watercolor pencils, which is a different look as well. And then finally, we will have the last set, which is the watercolor twist pencils, which is probably the most subtle of all of them, and the traditional watercolors. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope I've given you some inspiration to pull out different mediums to try with the packaging technique to achieve different looks. Be sure to check in tomorrow, as I'll have one more mixed media video for you, and we will see you soon.